all-knowing and all-powerful, starting with the elderly wolf uncle chapter 66. But I couldn't tell whether what I said meant the correct definition or simply didn't win against Chen Tian. I hope you can win me next time, Chen Tian said with a smile. But subtly, Clark's words set the tone. The words fell. Chen Tian no longer stayed, turned around and stepped on the ground, his figure turned into an afterimage, and flew towards the direction of the metropolis. Clark looked at the sky, but in the blink of an eye, there was only the back of Chen Tian, the size of a grain of rice, and he was stunned for a moment. And then he also bounced up and fled into the sky. A few seconds later, disappear into the sky of New Mexico. It didn't take long to pass. The remnant sun, which had already been largely submerged into the horizon, had disappeared. Snap. Chen Tian opened the door of his apartment and returned to his residence. Not long after closing the door, he heard the door of the opposite room also open. Apparently Clark also returned. But Chen Tian didn't care. Clark at this time estimated to be alone for a while to digest his gains and losses. Thinking. Chen Tian went to take a bath and washed away the sludge all over his body, and he could see that although he had gone through a fierce battle, his body with the blessing of a steel body did not have any scars. Changed into clean clothes. Chen Tian sat on the sofa and his mind moved. Character panel, Chen Tian, ability, born, small water control, dimensional teleportation, ability to copy Batman, advanced fighting. Advanced dart skill Wolverine, super self-healing factor, super strength Professor Charles, psychic ability Catwoman, advanced thief Jerome 280, control Raiden Superman, Man of Steel, superpower. Super speed, heat vision, flight, biological stance, bloodline, Krypton Superman bloodline. Chen Tian's eyes scanned back and forth on the panel, and the satisfaction in his eyes became stronger. Especially when sweeping the line of superhuman abilities. It can be said that now he almost has copied most of his superhuman abilities. Especially the most important thing is to ensure that you have endless potential and can be infinitely strengthened Krypton bloodline. Combined with other abilities, now I just need a little more time, I can have the ability of Dachau General, or even surpass Dachau. And then it will be enough to face most of the crises. Chen Tian muttered, let out a long sigh of relief, and his body relaxed slightly. Then, on the television in front of him, the news began to be reported. Today, the forests of the western part of the metropolis have been inexplicably destroyed, and large areas of vegetation cover have been destroyed. Quote, The weather station said that it was very puzzling about the sudden wind in the city, and they did not detect any warning. Behind the screen, journalists report strange events happening in the metropolis today. There were witnesses who photographed the sky, and there were two trajectories flying in the air, but the photos were too blurry, and no one knew what the strange phenomenon in the photos was. With news reports far away words, an extremely blurry photo immediately appeared on the TV screen. When Chen Tian saw this, he immediately knew that the so-called strange phenomenon was the figure of him and Clark. However, it is estimated that ordinary people will never think that it is the two of us. After Chen Tian saw this, he shook his head with a smile. Then, Natasha's beautiful face appeared in front of his eyes. After that woman last contacted me, it is estimated that xianxia will not come again in the short term, but I don't know what they plan to do in the long term. Thinking about it, Chen Tian stood up. On the DC Universe side, he has almost copied all the abilities of the Big Super, and in the rest of the short time, it is estimated that nothing major will happen. He is ready to go back to Marvel first and deal with the things over there first. Between thoughts, Chen Tian activated the ability of dimensional teleportation, stretched out his hand forward, and the space in front of him suddenly distorted, rippling with heavy ripples. A dimensional portal immediately appeared in front of him. Meanwhile, in a luxury villa, inside the living room, a figure with a bald head is sitting on the killing folter, watching the news about the destruction of the West. On the screen in front of him, a picture of the desert being severely damaged appeared everywhere. The corners of the man's mouth were outlined with an evil smile. If Chen Tian was here, he would definitely be able to recognize him. It's Lex Luthor, one of DC's villains. Doomga Maker. At this time, Lex Luthor looked at the news, his fingers lightly tapped on the arm of the sofa, and an evil thought had already germinated in his heart. Chapter 63, The God of the World descends on the Marvel Universe. Blast. Kill all SHIELD members. The Marvel Universe and the DC Universe that Chen Tian walked through, although they are in two different dimensions, do not overlap. But the time flow rates on both sides do reach a certain parallelism. At this time, in the Marvel Universe, it has just ushered in the night after the sunset disappears. Located in Washington, D.C., in the headquarters of SHIELD's Scattered Wings. Nick Fury frowned and sat slightly anxious in the office. On the computer in front of him, various materials are constantly scrolling. The light emitted by the screen illuminated his black bald head. Since learning that Chen Tian and his party entered New York, he has not been in a good mood for 2 consecutive days. Especially after knowing that the other party has recognized Natasha's disguise and understands that SHIELD has paid attention to them. Nick, the restlessness in Fury's heart went to a higher level. In his eyes, this mutant represented extreme danger and could threaten the entire United States and even the entire world. Now they still do not cooperate with the position of SHIELD with hostility. This makes Nick Fury felt even more nervous. Chen Tian and the continued stay in New York was simply a time bomb that could explode at any time for him. Once it explodes, it will have consequences that are irreversible and even unbearable for everyone. Chen Tian, what do you mean? Nick. Fury's one-eyed gaze flickered, and his already dark face became more and more gloomy, and he muttered in deep thought. Although he still can't figure out Chen Tian's motives. But what is certain is that the other party is repulsive to the official organization. No one is afraid of obvious hostility, at least it is directly on the surface, and the measures to deal with it can be decisively chosen. Nick. Furui was anxious now, and he couldn't figure out Chen Tian's thoughts. If these mutants were not prepared to take any extreme actions. However, xield took a radical arrest action, and then provoked Chen Tian's words, then the sinners became themselves instead. Bang bang, right at Nick. Fury was still in deep thought. There was a knock on the door. As soon as he looked up, he saw Coulson push open the office door directly and walk in. Head. We haven't seen Chen Tian's trace for 2 days. The manor where they live has always been watched by our people, and all the other mutants have appeared one after another. But Chen Tian's figure is nowhere to be found. Coulson had just walked in the door and couldn't even wait to walk to Nick. In front of Fury, he had already said a lot quickly. The expression on his face was very solemn, and he obviously felt that something was wrong. In every direction of the manor, we sent people to watch it 24 hours a day. It can be determined that Chen Tian did not leave the manor, and he did not even go out of the door of the villa inside. Coulson put the information he had collected in the past few days on the desk in front of him and continued to add. What does that mutant named Chen Tian want? Nick. After Fury heard the report, his brows suddenly furrowed even deeper. Chen Tian and his party entered the center of New York City with such fanfare, it was completely impossible to imprison themselves. If so, there was no need for him to refuse access from xield at all. Come to think of it, Nick. Fury narrowed his eyes. You take someone into their manor to take a good look. He gave the order in a deep voice. I'm afraid that Chen Tian is engaged in some unknown conspiracy. First chapter, previous chapter 66, 186, next chapter, table of contents.